Right, exactly. Perfect. All right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being with us here this afternoon for this exciting Lunch and Learn Women in Business. My name is Andrea Ray, and on behalf of our board and our staff, it's my honor to welcome you to this event and bring this new iteration of our Celebration of Women in Business event. Again, we've been doing a lot of our diversity and inclusion work at the Chamber for the last 3 years. One of the events that we've held the last 3 years is our Celebration of Women in Business. And as we always try to do at the Chamber is listen to the feedback from the members and on all of our events. And part of that feedback was they really liked the panel at our Celebration of Women in Business event. But they thought that maybe it would be better to separate the networking and the mentorship component, with the actual information sharing and panel. And so that's what we're doing this year. We have a panel for our Lunch and Learn, and then we'll do our Celebration of Women in Business in October at Anthony's as well. So just so you know, that is our goal, is to help you gain insight and be as prepared as possible for what can sometimes be a dynamic and ever-changing workforce that we're navigating together. And our chamber was founded on the principle that we're better and stronger together, which is why it's so great to have you all here with us this afternoon. So we do have a tight schedule, and we started a little bit late, so I want to try to keep it going. Thank you so much to our staff who are there in the back, Emma and Renata. They are going to make sure that we stay on task because we really appreciate the time that you take out of your busy day to be with us, to grow not only yourself professionally, but also to grow your business. And so we want to be respectful of that time. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the Homewood Suites for hosting. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Wells Fargo. We'll hear from them a little later this afternoon. Thank you also to our event sponsors, Crane Photography. Andrew's taking pictures here. And of course, South King Media, because of their sponsorship, we are coming at you live from Facebook. So again, really appreciate you being here. And now I also want to introduce our panelists who took time out of their busy schedules to be with us here today. So Ayanna Brown is the large loss project manager for ServPro of Renton. She has 8 years of management and retail experience in operations, and she is passionate about creating, developing, and implementing and follow up on training and methods. So thank you so much for being here. And next, I just knocked over my water. Betsy McFeely, the Community Relations Director for Seattle Goodwill. She has spent her professional career in the nonprofit sector, moved to Seattle from the East Coast 29 years ago. Sitting to her left is Darcel Lobo. Darcel Lobo is an attorney and owner of DAL Law Firm in Normandy Park. And her practice areas include estate planning, real estate, and bankruptcy. And she prides herself in her legal work, bringing practical solutions to real-life issues and helping clients plan for their financial future. She resides in Des Moines with her husband and their 2 children, Lucy, who is 8, and does Girl Scouts with my daughter, and Maxon, who is 6. Along with their 1-year-old English Bulldog, Panda. Darcel is also one of our newest board members at Seattle Southside Chamber. And last but of course not least, Carrie Wallingford. Carrie has been creating solutions using insurance and other financial products for Seattle business owners and families for over 30 years. She takes pride in listening with passion to learning what her clients want, in protecting their solutions and allowing them to realize their dreams, and of course to have peace of mind. And hopefully that's what we're all going to have after this afternoon. A little peace of mind about where we are with what's happening with the workforce and how we can all work a little bit better together. So I have a couple questions that we'll ask the panel, and then we'll open it up to a Q&A so we can, search the wisdom of the group. We know that we learn when we share and we grow together. So that'll be part of the presentation this afternoon as well. So if you have a question, again, it's an informal environment, right? So if there's a question that you just have to ask, right away, just, raise your hand, let me know. But we also have pads there. You can jot it down and we can get to it later, whatever you're comfortable with. So one question that I really want to make sure that we have everyone answer is what are the challenges that are currently facing women in the workplace, and not just in general women in the workplace, but in your specific sectors. right? You know, so finance, law, you know, nonprofit, you know, kind of the trades, you know, like what is that unique perspective that you bring? What are some of those specific challenges? And whoever wants to dive in first.
I'll start, because when I started 32 years ago, I actually had a gentleman I interviewed with say, you know, 95% of women won't make it in the insurance industry. Stood up, shook his hand, I said, sir, I am not 95% of most women, and I left. That being said, over time, our industry has really evolved into embracing women and finance. I think there are more women in the financial services arena than ever before. I think that women are incredibly successful in our industry, and we have a lot of leaders that are standing up and guiding other women into the industry. So from what it was 32 years ago, where, you know, here I was in my early 20s going into a room full of men saying, hey, you want to buy life insurance? Now they understand that women know, but I think what they also are understanding is that women have compassion beyond what they ever thought would be available. So I think for women in the financial industry, there's a lot of opportunity, and there really is no limit to what successful women can do.
I'll go next. So I'm Darcel, I'm an attorney. And I will say that, you know, in law schools, we're seeing a pretty good even split as far as 50-50 women and men attending law school and graduating law school. But when it comes to the actual practice, when I'm in court, like I was on Wednesday, I was the only woman in the whole courtroom. You know, and so, you know, even though we have, you know, women who are going to law school and graduating and are practicing as attorneys, when it comes to my actual practice in real life, that's not what I see. It is improving. You know, I've been practicing for 10 years now, and so it has been improving, but you still, it's in your face a lot of times, especially when, you know, I'm on committees and on boards and things like that with other attorneys. Women have been the minority in that group a lot of times. And so as far as challenges for women, from what I see, I mean, I'm a mother of 2 young kids, and so a lot of my colleagues and friends who are attorneys are moms as well. And it's trying to find that balance, although I don't think the balance ever actually exists. I think you're just always juggling, right? You're just trying not to let any balls fall on the floor. Just keep them all in the air as best you can. There's no balance. I haven't found a balance, but I'm a pretty good juggler. And so I think for a lot of women who are moms is trying to find how to best, you know, be a mother, whatever that means to you and your family, but also continue your career. And for some women, that's putting their careers on hold for a number of years while their children are raised, or trying to find a part-time job as an attorney. But it's hard in the legal industry to really keep up if you're only working 15-20 hours a week. You're not just as involved as far as what's going on in the law, because the law is always changing. So that's something that I think women and mothers in particular are always struggling with, having difficulty with. And so for me, being a mom and being an attorney, the best I can do is, you know, be a mentor to women who are trying to figure that out. And, you know, for me, it's really figuring out what works for you and making your own lane and doing what works best for you. And so for me, that was going out on my own, opening my own firm, because I just didn't want to be in somebody else's box as far as what they thought I should do, how many hours I had to work, and sacrificing my life at home with my family. So that's what I've seen firsthand in my experience with colleagues of mine. You know, but I can only do the best that I can do, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job. So
You are.
Well, I'll dive in. I'm Betsy. I work for a nonprofit organization. And as I was preparing my answers, I ran across this article in the Seattle Times last night, which for me sort of summarizes what's happening in the nonprofit sector for women. It's an article about
the opera.
The new Seattle Opera's new director joins an exclusive club of women heading big opera companies, and it continues to say that she will become only the 4th general director in the company's 56-year history, and one of only two women to lead a large budget opera company in the United States of America. So I know, but good news, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Two's better than one.
Yes.
So Betsy knows this about me, but I worked at Seattle Opera for over 14 years.
Oh,
right. So
right.
that was my background too, and so we were all really anxious, to find out, well, who's going to be the new general director, and it's great. It's a woman.
Yes.
What's not great,
Yes.
is that it's an exclusive club, and we were having a conversation with some of our Facebook friends, and we were saying, if it's one person, is it really a club, right? Or two people, is it really a club? Yeah.
It's the club of me, myself, and I.
Right? Yeah.
What I will say is that, yes, I think this is true, that at the higher ranks, CEO, executive director, whatever, historically men have had those roles, and I think it's changing over time. And I think organizations are more conscious about having more diversity, not just male and female, but different people who represent, who we serve as clients and or people that are more representative of the community. And that, I think, speaks also to our board of directors, where you can also see a lot of leadership. I do think nonprofits are popular for women. I think, people approach them because they want to give back, and they're really jazzed about the missions, and it really resonates with them, so they really feel that connection. I think that's great. I'm in the kind of advancement umbrella, which includes marketing, communications, and also philanthropy, fundraising. And there are a lot of women in this advancement group, especially in fundraising. So there are some super opportunities. The flip side is that nonprofits historically have had low compensation packages. So that's another deterrent in terms of, can you make it a career? You're gonna have to move around. There isn't a lot of always, nonprofits tend to be lean and mean to keep the expenses down, so you can't always move up, but you can move out and up in a different type of career trajectory. So I think there are a lot of great reasons to go to a nonprofit, but I think that's the reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We're all looking
All right. My name's Ayana. As said, I am a large loss project manager for the ServPro Renton franchise. What that entails is I facilitate the management of all of our large commercial projects or complex residential projects. You get into your 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 square foot homes. Those are built like commercial structures as well. Prior to this career, I worked for Fred Meyer, the owner of our franchise, was my regional director. He started me out in management there when they were looking to diversify management, because in that industry, the higher you get in management, the more male it becomes. So he started me out there, and when he heard that I was looking to switch careers, he called me and asked me to come down and take a look, and when could I start? And so commercial project management was something that piqued my interest about 4 years ago. I've been with him we're going into our 6th year, and I just got the bug. If anyone's run a big project, large crews, I just thrive off of it. With that said, I'm running a project in downtown Seattle right now. We're averaging about 40 people a day. And of those 40, 37 of them are going to be men. And so there are times where they look to other people on my crew and think that they're in charge until they realize that, no, I am the boss. And so what I found in this industry as a woman is there's a very fine line between confidence and cocky. And men tend to get a little more leeway with that. And so I find myself a lot of times pinching myself when I feel that the situation wouldn't necessarily be going that way if I was a man. But I've learned to just not necessarily let someone speak over me, but give them their due time. And if they start to speak over to me, I definitely know how to hold my own. I was at a table with 4 people of an ownership group, someone I'm training, 2 other people there to observe, and the owner of our franchise, and everyone kept questioning them about the project that I'm managing. And my boss said, oh, Ayana is our specialist. She is our project manager. She is who you should be asking these questions. No one else at this table. And so I appreciate, what he does. Our general manager, one of our operations manager, and half of our project management staff are female in our franchise, which is definitely not the norm. But he understands the value, and if you're valuable, he doesn't care if you're male or female or purple. If you can get the job, right? So I definitely think that there's a need for more women, and it's a confidence issue because you definitely get knocked down quite often, and so you've kind of got to be built for it and have the constitution for it. But if you do, the sky is the limit, So in the trades, there's definitely a push for women in plumbing trades and electrician. They're begging women to come and train. They're offering all types of incentives. And I think sometimes as women, we forget that we do 50,000 jobs, so why can't we do that, right? We've all went to the panel and tried to fix something, flip a breaker. Why can't we go be an electrician? We can. So when I identify other women that are interested, I definitely mentor them and take pride in their success. We just have to be careful about trying to compete with each other instead of kind of helping each other along.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. But touched on, a couple of really, important topics that I think, again, cross all industries, right? It's confidence. It's the ability to, juggle and, prioritize. It's finding those mentors and those champions that will have that social courage to be able to speak up, and give the floor to the person who needs it. So those are some kind of solutions to some of the challenges that just run across all industries when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What would be some other kind of key steps to solving some of these challenges? We talked you talked a little bit about, well, how can we work better together? We need to lift each other up, not be tearing each other down. How do we create more direct cooperation instead of competition?
It's a challenge in my industry.
Right.
I mean, it's a dog eat dog world in my industry. We're definitely trying to bridge that gap. We do work with other mitigation companies, smaller or larger. I've partnered with like 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and we do work that they do, but we also fill niches that they don't. And so it's about partnering and then not crossing the line to try and get work. And that is a struggle in our industry. But I think just, I was reading an article where, girl students are going to be spoken over 80% of the time, right? Like they're only going to speak up 20% of the time. So if you're in a position of power and you're in a position of recognizing and training people, understand that just because that person is quiet doesn't mean that they don't have something valuable to say, and challenge your people to allow their peers to speak because it's going to help your team. That's the owner of our franchise. Everybody's empowered to speak to what's going to make us, perform better. No one's voice is more valuable than anyone else's. So
I think it's part of being a good leader. And so when you're a good leader, everyone has a voice. And making sure that, if you're in a company meeting, you're actually making sure everybody is sharing and everybody understands that you're as vulnerable as they are. You're as much of a human being as they are. And good leaders know how to do that. They know how to engage that whole population and give everybody a voice. And in our industry, there's a lot of joint work. I don't know everything, so I'm going to bring somebody in, whether it's a man or it's a woman. It's going to be the person that's going to be able to best serve that need. And when you are open to that, the old adage was, 50% of something's better than 100% of nothing. And it's just a matter of saying, hey, I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm going to partner with somebody who does, and I'm going to learn in that capacity. And when you're open to learning, when you're open to that vulnerable opportunity, that moves you to that greater leader, like her boss, who's great about making sure, hey, this is the person who's the expert. That I think is something that we need to teach our children. And I think that in order to, I've seen a lot of the shift in the 30 years I've been in business, and I don't know if you have or not, but I've seen a big shift in women coming into power, and a lot of it is, how do you juggle? I had the privilege of having my husband raise our children. So we reversed roles because, we looked at the daycare costs and we said, oh, geez, that's expensive. And I said, by the time you take home a paycheck and we pay that to the daycare, you're making about $15,000 a year. I can grow my business by that. And so that's what we decided to do, is he takes care of the kids. Having people adapt to that kind of flexibility, and my husband's a lot older than me, he's still struggling with that issue. Because, the role historically is the man makes the money and the woman takes care of the children. What we have in actually what we're dealing with in the financial world is that women are not properly prepared for retirement because they've taken the time off, because they've juggled the balls, and the work ball dropped. And so I think teaching our children, teaching the boys and the girls that everybody is capable, everybody is equally contributed to society. Everybody should be able to say, okay, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take the baby ball here and raise the children so that you can grow that practice. And I think that's one of the ways that we adapt and grow as a society, is we understand that there's not a his role and a her role, there's an us role. And I think changing those roles and changing that thought process is one of the ways to get around that. But as good leaders, they understand to listen to all the people at the table, and that's, I think, what I know what your boss does. I'm the boss, so I can't call myself.
I was going to say that I think women need to learn to advocate for themselves and also ask for what they want, or ask for what we want. I will personalize it. And that's not easy. You read a lot of articles, for instance, about women be feeling uncomfortable about asking for a raise and that sort of thing, and just putting yourself out there and going into your boss and telling him or her why you. And I have a female boss, but I still feel intimidated by, or asking, gee, I feel like I have a lot to contribute to our CEO. I really want to work on this project, because that's how you're going to, number one, grow, and don't wait for someone to give it to you. And also raise your profile within the company. And sometimes that comes with all of those subtle, oh, there she goes again, or there's Betsy, asking those tough questions. It's like, well, I just have a question. I like to know things. It's nothing more than that. But you just have to avoid and ignore those kinds of subtle sort of, I think, put downs, and just do what you feel, be true to yourself, because that's the person that you have to answer to.
Right. And like I mentioned, I think for me, for what I've seen and what I've experienced, is mentorship in your community, and as far as other colleagues. And so for me, like, I've had so many mentors, men and women, but in particular, women who, are mothers and going out on their own, opening their own firms, like having somebody to go to and support you who understands what you're going through, but is also there to be your cheerleader and to, assure you that you can do this, you've got it, and so that's what I strive to do in my practice with other attorneys, who, anytime somebody wants to call and have lunch, have coffee, needs tips, I'm always more than happy to sit down and chat with that person, just to pay it forward, because so many people have done that for me, and I think that's so important to do with other women, and just to be supportive of each other. And like we were saying, it's not a competition. Like, there's room for everybody to be their best and do their best, whatever that may be for them. And so that's kind of a big thing for me in my practice, is making sure that I am available and mentor anyone who would ever like any kind of advice or tips, because that's really helped me quite a bit in my practice.
I think that's great. And I know, for myself too, you talked a little bit about, that vulnerability and, that line between, well, you have to be, you're an advocate for yourself, you're an advocate, for the company that you work with and for, but you need to still be vulnerable enough to ask for help when you need it. And I feel so fortunate that I do. I still have those people on the speed dial that, you know, like, look, I've got something, I just need to pick your brain on this, right? And that I know that was so hard to make that first step, because I was admitting, you know, that I don't know what to do. Right. And, you know, again, well, if I'm the boss, I'm supposed to know, you know, how to do everything. I should be able to problem solve myself. You know, I'm, you know, independent, I'm strong, I'll figure it out. No, right? No. You know, I think that, you know, as leaders, you know, as women in the workplace, one of the most important things that we can do is just, you know, wave the flag to say, we don't know all the answers, and we are constantly asking for help and encouraging people to also, you know, ask for help. So that gets a little bit into some of those solutions, you know, advocacy and mentorship, you know, teaching, you know, that again, a lot of this is learned behavior. It goes kind of counter to, you know, cultural or, you know, societal norms, you know, things that, you know, maybe we're not, you know, taught in school, or that our parents tell us, but that we, you know, soak up as, you know, sponges, you know, growing up. What are some of your questions that you would, again, you know, like to seek the wisdom, you know, of the panel, or, you know, maybe from each other? Yes, they're in the back.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm an attorney as well. Brand new attorney, actually, just moved over here for a job. So I've only been practicing for about 4 months, but what I'm seeing is actually sexism from my clients, not so much my peers. I feel like they expect like a white male who's old, which I'm a young attorney, woman, so a lot of strikes against me. Whenever they assume I'm an assistant or a paralegal, it just kind of ruins my day. How do you guys deal with just like bouncing back from that? Because I think that's the hardest struggle for me right now. And I'm in an office with all men, so I'm the only woman in my office. So just my clients expect me to be male, and if I'm not, then I'm an assistant. So it's just hard.
Well, that's kind of what you were talking about.
I can tell you from my perspective, you have to, you can only control your feelings. And I don't take offense, I take it as a challenge. So you don't think that I can do this? So let me show you. And I have had to replace myself on projects because they were more comfortable with a male. And guess whose loss that was? It wasn't my loss. But my ego is not that big. I want to secure the work. So if that customer is going to be more comfortable with someone else, fine. But also try not to take offense. Take it as a challenge. Okay, so you think I need to be 20 years older and male to do a good job for you? Let me show you why that's not true. And the 7-11 rule will hold. They're going to tell 7 people how great you did. But if you do crappy, they're going to tell 11, right? And that's the only way you're going to change people's opinions. If you don't think that they see a black female walk in the room and think that she's in charge, my owner allows me to travel for training. I've been to Philly, Tennessee, Chicago, and I am the only black female in the room everywhere I go. And I have had people think that I worked for the hotel in places that I went, but I don't take offense. I take it as a challenge. I was in a training class in Philly, and they put me at a desk with adjusters and franchise owners. So I was the only technician at the table. But guess who they were looking to for all the answers? The people that supposedly knew the most. By the end of that 5 days, they were looking to me. So I had changed their mind. You can change your clients' minds, who's going to change his families and his friends, and then they're going to recommend you. 75% of the work that I get called is word of mouth work. You did a great job for X, and he said I need to call you. Not call ServPro, call Ayana. So don't take offense, and definitely you can't let it color your day. Excuse your, I've learned some techniques. Excuse yourself, go outside, go rage it out. Come back in, come back in and get it done.
That's a new hashtag.
Yeah. Sometimes I call my GM. I'm like, I need you to get out here. I need to go blow off some steam. She's like, I'm on my way. She comes, takes care of the crew. I go, rage it out, and come back. Good to go. Let's get it done. So
right. And, well, I was just gonna say, because my first interview, right? 95% of women won't make it, and I just said, I'm not 95% of most women. And Ayana's right. It's about knowing you have incredible skills, incredible knowledge. Your heart is bigger than the most of the people around you. No offense, guys, but women have an empathy gene that men don't have, and it's just true. And so there's, by proving them wrong, don't go to the negative. Prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. Show them you have the capacity to overcome anything. And I've been in situations where when I first started, there was 2 women in the office of 20, so 10%. And then one gal left, so then there was just me. And eventually that office couldn't even handle me. And I literally walked into work one day and they changed the locks on the door. Oh. And I said, honey, something's happened. They changed the locks. And he goes, honey, I'm not liking this. Long story short, that was God's way of closing the door and saying, I don't want you there anymore. I want you over here. I want you to do this. And sometimes paying attention to that is really hard, and listening to what God's trying to encourage you to do is challenging. But when you're in an industry full of men, I'm in an industry full of old gray hairs, and now I'm one of them, so that's kind of scary. But it's in the way that you prove them wrong is your staying power. And you have staying power just because you're a woman. I mean, we can do a lot. And I think guys don't quite get how we can do a lot, because we can listen to them and watch that show and pay attention to the children all at the same time. There's a great divide between the 2 brains of a man, the left brain and the right brain. Have you ever seen that thing where the men's brain versus women's brain? Google it. It's the funniest thing you've ever watched. I realized at one point my husband does have.
It's called the nothing box.
It's a nothing box, yeah. And he's like, nothing is going on. And so you just have to prove them wrong, like Diana's saying. It's a very doable thing. And my dad, God bless his heart, never ever made us feel less. Mm-hmm. And so I was raised that way, so it was really easy for me to think, you guys are silly. I'm right. I know what I'm doing.
I would just say, too, I don't know what's available in the legal profession in terms of professional groups, but you, and since you're new to Seattle, might want to look around and find a professional group to become a part of, so you can find some other, I'll call gal pals that, can, because I'm sure they're experiencing similar issues. And while, yes, you're on the job and you're going to do it, when you have a minute, you have a kind of a support network that you can sort of talk it down or walk it off, just to sort of recoup and re-energize yourself, so that, and I think, feel what you feel, but then, okay, I'm going to come back, and it's just a little setback, but here I go.
Right, and I think just also again with men too, not to beat up on them too hard, so they go to the order. We have a lot of fantastic male allies in the room here, and I know even for me, it was a male mentor of mine that actually told me some of the best advice that I ever got as a leader, which is to stop apologizing. Mm-hmm. Because I found myself doing that. I would start every email, I'm so sorry it took so long to get back to you, or I'm just emailing you, again, starting with that tone of less than, and he's like, stop it, you are not less than, what are you apologizing for? There's nothing to apologize for. So, we do have those great, male allies, and I would say just as we're leaning on our, female mentors, it's also, trusting them to lift us up too. There's something else you wanted to add to that?
I was going to say, point out to your coworkers, I've pointed things out to my coworkers that were oblivious to them, right? When I go out with a couple of my male project managers, white male project managers, and we were at a house, and I know that this guy had keyed in on me, and he was saying some very slick, disrespectful things that they would not pick up on because they were not aware. And we had stepped outside, and I pointed it out to them. And so the next time he tried to do it, they called him out on it because they already had his respect, right? So make sure that your coworkers are aware, because maybe they just don't see it happening, but if they do, and they value you, they're going to assist you in that as well.
Right. And just to follow up, just being in the same practice, as you, as an attorney, is that I definitely have had that, and I still have that, and I have clients, or people who will call to see me, and they come in, and I'm not what they expected. I don't look like them, and that I'm not their picture of what an attorney looks like in their mind. It's like, didn't you look at my website? Didn't you look at my pictures on? How did you know? They think I'm a man. They think my name is a man's name, and they have no idea. But I've had somebody go so far as want to see my law degree because they didn't believe that I was. Like, you're in my office, and they wanted to see my law degree. And here you go. This is it. At the end of the consult, it was a woman, and she hired me. And so I agree. Don't apologize. Don't feel bad about anything. Don't feel the need to apologize, and you deserve to be where you're at. You went to law school. You passed your bar. You got your law degree. You're an attorney. They're going to respect you, but you also need to make sure that you're showing them that you can do the job just as good as anybody else, and that's all you have to do. And so I just try not to let it ruin your day. Don't let those things get to you, because it's not about you. It's about them.
Yeah. And I think
what I mean? So
no, and I think do we have time for one more question? Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. She had her hand up first. Perfect.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
don't be sorry.
You had your hand up first.
You cannot listen to what Andrea just said.
I'll work on that.
It's great advice.
So it kind of touching on what everybody has been talking about. I went into a new position, and in doing so, there was no manager that had been there for months and months, and there were a lot of things that needed attention, and one of those was just a deep clean of the store. And so I had mentioned to my all-male staff that, hey, we need to jump in and clean this. And one of the comments that was made to me was, oh, I can see as a woman how that would be important to you. Oh. And he is a white older male. Yes, he is. So my question is how to,
rage it out.
Well,
rage
yes,
it out.
But as a very strong woman, I can come across, when I address things like that, it's like if you come across as firm, then you're a bitch.
Right.
And if you come across too soft, then you're going to get walked on. So how do you tactfully deal with those situations while maintaining a professional approach to it? Because I wanted to.
So I'm going to try to take it, really quickly, and then if anyone has anything to chime in, just because I know we're trying to wrap it up a little bit here. But I think, again, the question essentially is how do you professionally, rage it out, right? And I think that what I would do, is kind of what Ayana talked about, is that, you lean on, someone else to be an advocate, for you as well, because sometimes coming from you, it won't register in the same way as it would, coming from somebody else. So again, I think it's important that you, again, are your own advocate and are very clear with, that wasn't okay. And sometimes that is better done, hey, could you have 2 minutes after this meeting? I'd just like to, talk to you for a second. Hey, you might not have realized that the way you said that and how you said that. And something else that I'll do is just to give someone the out. And again, this was the other best piece of advice I ever got, was take the most respectful interpretation, always. So most respectful interpretation on you saying that was that you were trying to make a joke, or you were trying to make light of this big project that we all know that we have to get done. In the future, how that felt or how that landed, wasn't quite so funny. So that helps a little bit. Like we talked about with parenting, it's a teachable moment.
Yeah, and one of the suggestions that one of my favorite coaches has always given me, happens to be my sister too, which is kind of crazy, but when she has a conflict like that, she always leans in and says, I'm not sure I understood you. Can you repeat that a different way? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh.
Yeah, I said that.
That's giving them an out as well. Huh?
Yeah, and so what it allows them to do is realize, and when she actually has a, because she had people under her that were men and women. I just have women in my office. So I don't ever have to deal with that. I just say, hey, let's clean. And they're like, okay, let's clean. She would have a key word if she had a conflict with someone. And when she would ever say that, or he would ever say that key word, they'd know, okay, we need to go rage it out somewhere apart and then come back and have this communication. And going separate, not in front of the whole team, and saying, hey, can I have a minute? Can we just chat? That allows you to not embarrass them, because you want to always be a good leader. And a good leader says, I'm vulnerable. I don't think you meant to say this way, but this is how it made me feel. And don't put it on them, but say, this is how I interpreted that. Did you mean it some other way? Give them that out. And so that way it's not being bitchy. You're just going, can you help me understand this a little bit better?
Perfect. All right. I'm so sorry, guys. That's all the time we have. I mean, we could talk forever. And I think, maybe that is even, some good feedback on, maybe this should be a longer event, and we can talk about that. But thank you all again so much for being here. Our panelists, some of them will be able to stick around. Certainly, we, the Chamber, are also always available to help you, and really appreciate it. So one more round of applause for our panelists.